Today, I welcome Karina Klassen on a topic that shapes our lives on all levels: confidence. Now, Karina is an expert in self leadership, in resilience, and workplace happiness. And I had the privilege to come across her a few years back now already in one of those business networking groups we were both part of. And I'm very grateful for that. So, Karina, you have a wonderful story already, from leaving corporate after a successful career to what you are doing now. So, maybe we start with you sharing a bit more about yourself and what brought you to do what you do nowadays, and also to this book you're about to launch.
Yes. Well, thank you, first of all, for the honor for inviting me for this podcast. I really appreciate it. And I also love that we got to know each other through the network event. And I think over the years, every now and then we see each other, we speak to each other, and it's always great to reconnect with you. Talking about my story, well, I think, first of all, I come from a family where my father was rather dominant, and I would actually say aggressive. So I was
Right.
a child that was really modest and withdrawn. Withdrawn because I was always afraid. I was
Mm.
always afraid that my father would burst out in anger and I would be punished. And that was something that led to me always wanting to be the best student. Trying to do so hard my best in order not to get punished. And I also noticed during my life that I was still afraid of being punished, even if I
Mm.
was an adult.
Yeah.
And I see you nodding. Maybe you know.
Oh, I can totally resonate with that. And I think many of us can.
I think so.
Whether it's something extreme, as in badly punished, etc., or whether it's just, that frown of disapproval, which really breaks your heart and makes you desperate to do your absolute best out of fear of letting somebody down, or a fear of verbal violence, or even in some cases, physical violence. I'm so glad we have this topic today, because I am sometimes taken aback by, even later, in our 50s, I'm 57, how much work is still needed to really feel that we're enough and that we can do
Yeah.
things, and that we don't need to be always seeking the approval of someone else. I think for
No.
most of us, it does start with daddy's approval, right? More than
Yeah.
anything else. And that at some point it's time to grow up and say, we are doing well, and we're not, that's not the only source of our self gratification, right? Somebody
No, not at
else,
all. No.
right? We've got to be happy with who we are.
Love ourselves, etc. But and coming back to my story, so I grew up, wanting to do so badly my best and wanted to be a perfectionist so that I could get everything under control. So
Right.
I wanted to be the perfect mother, the perfect wife. I wanted to look perfect. Now, name it, be the
Yeah.
employer of the year, so to say. And
Yeah.
I remember I was in my 30s working for Unilever and I had quite a tough job. And then my mom got ill and I had a really disastrous year.
Oh.
And I just thought, okay, I need to be smiling still and be there for everybody. And I gave everybody attention except myself, and in particular, my body. I didn't listen. I was really like, okay, mind over body. In the end, my body was like, okay,
You're
well,
not listening.
you're not listening. And I was whispering to you, I've been talking out loud, I've been shouting, I'll shut down now. This is it.
Oh.
So at a certain moment, I could barely move anymore. And yes, and I was so tired, I didn't sleep anymore. And the verdict was, you're in a burnout. And I
Right.
got into a rehabilitation center.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and the Rijndam for several months, which was, looking back, the best thing that could
Yes.
happen to me.
Yes.
Honestly, I always think there's a reason for everything we go through in life. And for me, I noticed there that I needed to learn to set my boundaries
Right.
because I was always trying to please, and be the perfect one. But what did I want?
Yeah. And often you don't even know, do you? You don't
No, I
even
had
you don't
no
even know
idea.
what your boundaries are. You
No, because
know?
I remember the first question the psychologist asked me was like, Karina, where are your boundaries? And I looked at her and I was like, are you talking acabadabra? I have no
Yeah.
clue what you
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah.
So I really had to learn who I was, but also learn how to reconnect with my body. And from that experience, I started doing, well, loads and loads of courses.
Right.
And I became from, being very insecure to this manager also in companies that was quite confident. And even more so, I started developing the sense of I don't care anymore what people think of me. I am enough,
Yes.
and I have my flaws like everybody
Of
else.
course, of course. That doesn't mean we
All
consider
good.
ourselves perfect, but
Yeah,
it's always work in progress, and that's
that I
interesting. It's
still
fun, it's self-empowering, but
definitely.
it's not the rest. I totally get you. And I just find it such a shame that we often have to wait so long
That's it.
until we cross that boundary where we say, enough, you
Yes.
know?
And that's exactly why I wrote my book. Because
Right.
I was thinking, I've had such a long journey, and there are so many easy to apply things that if I had known them earlier, I wouldn't have had to go through all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for my journey because what I do today is helping others, supporting,
Exactly.
training people, and I love what I do. But I also noticed that it was a hard route. And I thought, okay, at a certain moment, I wanted to write a book to give people the possibility to make
Right.
shortcuts, so to
Yes,
say.
exactly, exactly. Nobody,
Shortcuts.
of course, we have to have our own journey and we have to have our own trigger where we start to feel like, okay, should I really be still doing this? But then to at least have a book or something which can help you make that path faster, as you say, or maybe, eye opening in life. I do believe we are here to be happy and to be joyful, right? It's not that we have to suffer our whole life in
No,
order to
no,
have lived a good life, because people who are happy and who are confident in who they are, and I love the way you said it, it doesn't mean arrogance. It doesn't mean thinking that we're
no.
perfect. It's being happy with the base, with our core identity, knowing that there are some things we'd like to do more of, some things we'd like to do less of, and then it's our choice to either do that or live with it. You've now dedicated your whole life. I mean, you have your own business now as well, don't you?
Yes, yes. I not only work on confidence, but I also have an MBA in organizational happiness. So
There
I
we are.
have,
That's what I wanted to get.
yes,
An MBA in organizational happiness. I
yes.
mean, that just sounds so lovely.
Yeah, it was, yes. It's all about happiness. And I also think confidence and happiness are so
Yes,
closely related
yes.
because honestly, I've never seen anyone who was very insecure being really happy.
Of course not. Because insecure means that we need something external, don't we, to give
That's
us that
it.
feeling of happiness. That
Yes.
means you're always dependent on the
On
job or the
others.
husband or the friend or whoever it is. And that's no way to live, because then we are in fear, aren't we? Because
Yes,
what others give, they can take back, to come back
yes,
to our childhood experiences with parents who maybe you're walking on eggs and one minute everything's fine and the next minute suddenly there's all this verbal stuff which hurts, even if it's not violent. And we do internalize that. And that does make us, yeah, insecure and always wondering, well, what's the next thing I can do? What's the next thing I've got to do? All
yes,
these I've got to, I should. I'm
yes,
terrible in that. Waking up at night like, oh, I should have, rang my sister and I should have rung my
yeah,
son and I should have, sent that to her before and I should have. It's not even coming from a position of love and wanting to care. It is coming from a position of maybe they won't love me if I don't do that.
yeah. Isn't that awful?
Isn't it
And
awful?
and so
Yeah.
and what I also say, and I also write about it in the book, because I think the first step is confidence, but eventually we want to go to self-love.
Right.
But for that, you need some kind of confidence already, and you
Yes.
need courage. Because you and I, Julie, we're from an age where I don't know about you, but I wasn't learned to self-love.
Oh, it's not girls
No, it was
working, are we?
always somebody else first. And it was sort of, it's egocentric or egoistic
Yes, it's
to
bad.
think, isn't it?
Mhm.
So I really had to learn how to love myself.
Right.
And that means also that when I didn't do that, call that sister, or didn't do that, that I'm still okay. I can still love
Yes.
myself. I
Yes.
don't need the external validation anymore.
Yeah.
It's nice when it comes.
Yeah.
So feels so much stronger if you don't really need it from somebody else.
Right. Because it's the confidence of being. I mean, maybe we should start with defining what confidence means for you, actually.
Yes. Well, actually, normally confidence is very much related to competences or skills. So it's on your
True.
abilities or maybe the way you look, because also a lot of people
Yeah.
get confidence from how they look. But it's very much related, like we touched upon already, on external validation.
Right.
People telling us you're very good at, at making podcasts. So people tell you, oh, you're good at that. And you get your confidence from
Confidence
that.
from that.
Yes. So that's for me confidence. It's knowing and believing in your abilities to do certain things.
Right. And it's intrinsic, right? It's also something which it doesn't mean that we know anything. It's just trusting that we will be able, maybe we need extra
Yes.
resources or something to do it, or do a course or check with somebody else. But it's that ability of whatever comes my way, I can deal with it. Maybe
Yes.
on my own, but maybe I need something else, right?
Yes. And I also think that what you mentioned there is coming from resilience,
Oh,
having fallen down and
yes.
then standing up again, and then knowing, okay, maybe I've fallen down 20 times, but I'm able to stand up.
Yeah.
Bad things happen to all of us.
Yes. Yes. And we don't always choose what happens to us, do
No,
we?
we don't choose what happens, but we can choose how to respond.
Right.
100%. And I also know that maybe now it's bad, but I'll survive.
Yes.
I'll bring myself back together again, and I'll be the joyful person that I am. I can
Right.
survive.
So it's a confidence in us, a sort of trust in life as well,
Trust in
right?
life, yes. It's also a kind of trust and a deep trust also in yourself.
Mm,
And I also think we often seek for solutions outside ourselves.
yes.
But the solution is
It's
inside
inside.
ourselves.
Mhm.
We think we are not enough, but everything is already there. We
Yeah.
are enough. But it's more like because all the things that we've gone through to life, we get these limited beliefs, and those limited beliefs sort of pile up. They lead their own life in our heads, and they make us feel insecure.
So they undermine our confidence, right? So maybe the
Yes.
first time we think, oh, this went really well, and then we fall and we fall again, and people say, well, you really shouldn't have done that. Then you start to doubt something which is natural. I mean, a child is born with confidence, isn't he? Otherwise, we would never try to walk and sit.
Yeah, that's what we always say, Lilo. Like children, they fall. When they start walking, they fall 100 times.
Yeah.
There's not one child who says, well, I've done this now
There's
several
something
times.
wrong with me. I'll never be able to walk. They
Yes,
don't say that, do they?
no, you just get up and you try again.
Yeah.
And
So you can relearn it. So, I mean, the way we're talking is that, okay, if we say, right, we're born confident, let's say we're born happy, we're born, and then things happen to us, often in our small years, education, bad experiences, etc. And it all adds up, adds up, adds up, adds up. And that's sort of undermining our natural state of confidence, which makes us then reliant on others or unsure of being all that we want to be because we're told to not make noise and to sit still, etc. But the good news then is we can relearn this.
definitely, 100%. And no matter what age you are, you
Right.
can always relearn this. Yes, yes,
So, what
definitely.
tips do you have? This audience is a 50 plus. I find that already from our own accord, or okay, I'm speaking for myself, but in general, with life, with thinking, with self awareness, with maybe studies or books or whatsoever that we do, I think there is a natural, almost sort of movement towards that feeling a bit like, well, I'm not perfect, but this is who I am. When my children say to me, oh, you're too much. And before I'd have felt like, oh gosh, I really should stop all these millions of ideas. Now I'm like, yes, I am. That's who I am. I have
Yeah.
lots of ideas and I'm a very creative person. But I don't take it as meaning that I'm bad, or I don't take it as meaning there's something wrong with me.
No, definitely.
And I
No,
think that's the difference, right?
yes, but also there's fields where we feel confident and fields where we don't feel confident. So maybe we've gained some confidence over the years, but especially women over
Yeah.
50, our bodies start to change, etc. We
Yes.
we get into menopause. That also may cause a lot of
Yeah.
insecurities as well.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely. Definitely. Because it's a bit like in adolescence, suddenly you're not in charge. You spent the last 40 or so years understanding yourself and how it works and what you need to do in order to be a certain weight or to be balanced or to be happy. And then suddenly it's like a monster there where everything's taken off kilter and you're reacting weirdly and putting on weight and feeling anxious and aggressive or whatsoever. So I think it is a period that we feel that our confidence is undermined. And maybe that also comes with sometimes also a feeling of it's not going to get better now, right? If it's been like this and I don't dare really follow my heart or do what, what I feel there is more in me, but isn't it a bit late? So there's a sort of a lack of confidence about what we're still able even to do.
I don't have that. I'm very much into the Ikigai thing. I don't know if you read the book,
Yes, yes.
where people, in their 80s start
Yeah.
learning a new language.
Yeah.
So I'm
No, I
much,
mean, I'm saying this more from like almost a devil's advocate from the people that I have
yeah,
around me, because I totally believe that the fabulous after 50 years are our golden years. I
yes,
really do. And that
yes,
it only gets better and better and better. I went running at lunchtime. Usually I could do an hour and a half there after, 55 minutes. I was a bit like, okay, now I slow down, but I'm still super happy that I can run like that. So it's what you're comparing yourself to and what
yeah,
you're being grateful for.
yeah,
And I totally agree. I've come across enough women who start a career at 70 or who recreate themselves. There
yeah.
is no limit. And when you think that nowadays, I've mentioned it before, my grandmother is 98, that technically gives me another 41 years to go.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm not doing what makes me happy. It's blinking time to start now.
Yes,
So if
yes,
we go to some tips,
yeah,
Karina, either based, you can share some of the
yeah.
secrets in your book, but of course we are going to encourage people to take a look at your book, and we will cover the event you are co-hosting also in a minute. But if we're talking about people who are listening, who are thinking like, oh yes, confidence,
Well, I
right?
think I would like to give three areas where you can work on. You briefly mentioned it. First of all, gratitude. Be grateful for all the things that happened, also the bad things, because what lessons did they teach you? And what I do is I've got this gratitude journal, and I love it just to think or write every day what I'm grateful for this
Right,
day. And it can be really simple things.
right,
And also, when you start thinking in your mind, let's take the example of us women over 40 and our body is not as nice anymore. Like, for example, I know my legs are a little bit soggy and etc. But you know what? Instead of thinking, oh, those legs look horrible, I can also think, I'm so grateful for those legs who brought me everywhere. And
right.
I can still walk. I can
Yes,
still do this. So it's also turning around your thoughts. So that's one thing. And you can
very
do that
good.
with everything. Writing about gratitude, I know you have been
I
studying
love gratitude.
Buddhism. So
Yeah, yeah.
yes, but it's usually the small things,
It is the small things, right?
It's
And
the
uh, and
small
and we
things.
and we don't even think about those things until they go missing.
Yes, but also like, looking outside.
Yeah.
I bought one of those containers with nuts, and
Hmm.
I've got those parrots that you see now
Oh
everywhere,
yes.
those green ones, and there's one hanging around it, like
Oh,
almost like a Cirque du Soleil.
but isn't that wonderful? It's like a little miracle. It's like a little
It's
gift.
lovely.
You've got a zoo outside your window suddenly.
Yes, so
Yeah.
I'm grateful for those kind of things, small things. It can be a dog, it can be anything.
Anything. A ray of sunshine.
Yes,
A
grateful
delicious
for the fact
cappuccino
that,
in a little place. I mean, it can really be anything. As you say, it's
and
often is the small things.
it's often the small things. Grateful for that I have food, that I have a head above my head, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. So that's one thing. The other thing is stop with social comparison.
That women in particular, aren't we?
Yes, because we just keep on going and going. Oh, she looks like this, she does like this. And what I also notice is quite often we think people are in a certain way, but it's usually not at
Of
all.
course not.
So we look at that like, okay, the grass is greener, but then
No one knows what happens behind those
that's
photos or
it. That's
videos or whatsoever. It
yeah,
really is a big, big myth. I mean, that's one that I try to do the whole time. People are like, "Oh, but your life is so glorious and wonderful. You're, all over this place." I'm like, "Oh, girl, no." And I don't want to be seen as perfect. I don't
no,
want people to retouch my photos. I'm proud of all of this. Yes, sure. I wish it was tighter. I wish it didn't sag as much, but I'm grateful for them. I've lived. This. I'm proud
yes.
of them. This is a 57-year-old woman who laughs a lot and talks a lot. So that
So,
is a good one. Yeah.
so definitely don't do all those comparisons because especially on social media, like you say, things are not what they appear to be.
No,
So
no,
we have this image, or also when people are entrepreneurs, if you didn't earn your first million in a few months,
you're not
you,
good enough.
you're not good enough. It's
Right.
bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It's
also
not
to come
good.
through to the externals. I mean, so many people use all these filters and things like that.
Yes,
So we don't know what they look like when they wake up in the morning, right?
no,
So it's really pointless. It doesn't bring us anything. It only again undermines our
yes,
confidence, right?
yes, yes. And then the third thing I like to touch upon is setting boundaries. For me, that was a big learning because the way I was raised, I always tried to please. And just really being able to say, okay, this is what I want and this is what I don't want.
Right.
And for some of the listeners, yeah, but I don't know what I want. What
Yes.
you can start with is looking, okay, what are your main values? What is really important for you? And there are many lists also online that you can download and look at those lists. Maybe you find out that for you, family is really one of your top values. Then you do know that if you have to choose between, for example, having a lot of money or doing something for the family, you'll probably choose the family. So
Yes.
this way you start learning what you really want.
Right.
And isn't it like that also with the airplane? You have to put on your own oxygen mask first.
Yeah.
So we have to learn how to set our boundaries also to keep safe, to have
Yeah.
self-care.
But
And
even just to know, because when I think of so many, well, in particular people pleasers, and this can apply to men, and they literally do not know what makes them happy. It's just even like a silly thing like, okay, what would you like for dinner? Oh, I don't know, whatever you want. And I'm like, that's not helping me. I'm,
no,
I'm tired of thinking up meals every day.
yes,
What would you genuinely want? And they don't know. They're so used to having wanted to go along, also, to be loved, to be liked, to be easy, to help other people. And I'm saying, but that isn't actually always helpful.
no, it isn't. So if you really learn to set your boundaries and also learn to say no.
To recognize first what you feel, right? So
Yes.
you
So
need to sort of
first,
start being
yes,
aware of actually, no, that isn't what I want to do.
yes, yes. So I've also written in my book like the 4 stages of the learning path. So
Ah,
first, you're unaware. So you're not
right,
even aware, where your insecurities are or that you're not setting boundaries. Then you get some insights, you become aware, but then you don't know how to deal with them.
right.
So you start learning how to deal with them, then you sort of deliberately put some techniques on them. And then when you've done that often enough, you become like proficient and it goes
Right.
automatically. And that's where you want to go, but also with the boundary settings. And what I would like to say to the listeners is if you set boundaries, it might be that you have to say no to certain things.
Yeah,
And people are quite often afraid that people won't like them
yeah,
anymore, or they will lose friends, or whatever. Well, first, I like to say if that's the way you lose them, then they're not real friends.
yes,
They're
yeah,
not real friends. And the second one is it's for you. It's your self-care.
right.
And it has to do with your happiness setting those boundaries.
Yeah,
So you really need it to
yeah.
become, to be happy, to be, caring and loving
Yeah.
for yourself.
And it's our life, right? Isn't it? It's our life. So we've got to think, well, what makes me happy instead of always wanting to make other people happy? It's not a service that we do anyone to put
No,
ourselves last. And also one other thing is, I mean, I've got a lot of energy, even I. I do realize that I do get tired faster than before. So if I don't learn to set boundaries about what is really important to me right now, or what is going to help me feel good so that I can help other people feel
well,
good. Oh,
that's exactly the point I wanted to make because I honestly believe that if you are setting boundaries and if you know what you want and you're acting upon it and you are feeling great, you're much better able to
to help others.
help others.
Right. Yeah,
So
because when our cup is empty, we can't, give
no,
anybody else a drink, right?
no.
It's that, yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you've written this book. I mean, so who would you say it's for, Karina, your book?
Well, I would basically say it's for almost everybody
Everyone, right?
who's well, especially who was in a job or is an entrepreneur, because I've also made the link to business because I
Right.
believe that this is one subject where nobody talks about in business.
It's
It's like
true.
one of the last taboos, but it's
Yes.
costing companies and entrepreneurs millions. because they
Right.
are too insecure to take a certain
Yes.
risk or
Yes.
whatever. So
And
I
to do what needs to be done or that they want to do, right? You just
yes,
hold back the whole time.
yes. So that's why I
Okay.
wrote this book for in particular.
Well, I'm very grateful you did. And I will make sure everything is in the show notes, the link to the book where we can get it.
Thank
And to
you.
finish off, I would like to talk about the event. So the listeners who follow every week will have heard that last week I invited the Fiona Pasantino to talk about AI and being AI powered. And so if I understand well, Karina, both of you are co-hosting an event, okay, in person in the
Yes.
Netherlands, but a great occasion to come to the Netherlands on the 28th. So tell me about your side of it.
Oh, well, it's actually really nice. First of all, thank you, Judy, for bringing Fiona and me together.
We just remembered this recently, I must say. We just remembered this recently that originally I had introduced the two of them years back.
Yes, yes. So we've been in touch for a while, and we were both writing books. And my book is about empowering yourself. And in a way, Fiona's book is the same. But it's through a different means. So it's empowering through AI. And
Right.
we noticed that there is so much that's in common in a way, because a lot of people are afraid of AI.
Yes,
How
yes,
can you use it in a positive way so that you're not afraid? Because if you're afraid, you become insecure about it. And also with tech, especially people over 50, you know,
especially women. Mhm.
yes, especially women, and then over 50, new tech,
Yeah,
etc. So how could we bring this
how
together?
wonderful. That is such a clever modern, actual way to look at things. I love it. I love it from both of you. So for that, and I am going. Of course, I'm absolutely delighted to go. So I would even say it is 28th of January in Delft in the Netherlands, and the in the show notes you'll find the link to get your little ticket. Right, and it's certainly well worth it because you've got these two powerhouses of women together, both approaching the subject from a very different way, but put together, that'll make us unstoppable. And that's what we want after 50, right? Karina, thank you. Thank you very much for all of this. I'm very much looking forward to the event. And the rest of you, I would say, come to the event if you can. And if you can't, get hold of this book because it might quite well open the doors to really a lot of very, very many happy years ahead. All the
Thank you
best.
so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Karina. Thank you.